What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Just Sayin Podcast with your co-hosts, Jake and Sutton. Today, we are previewing is it week 8, week 9?
Week eight.
Oh gosh, this is crazy. We're previewing week 8 games. I think we have a loaded slate, at least a loaded 2 games. I'm so excited for the back-to-back. We'll talk about those when we get up to them. But we also got some teams. We got 8 of them. So record number of teams. Last week, abysmal for some of them. And then we also have our best bets segment. Yes, it is best bets. At least for me, I'm 14 for 15 in the last 3 weeks. Insane. So let's see if we
I've
can
been putting up good numbers. I've been putting up, 60%. So that's really good. Jake's just been on a roll.
I've been on.
Yeah. We're also going to revisit our conference championship picks. And we're going to see if we're going to stick with our original picks or not. And I have a feeling at least for me, I'm not going to be sticking with a lot of mine. So
for the most part, I agree with the winners. I might still have all 5 of my winners, but some of these runner-ups got to be taken out of there.
Yeah. Well, I think we should start at game of the week in Columbus, Ohio, the 11 o'clock kick. He's repping Penn State. I'm repping the team we've got next. But since you are repping the Penn State Cougars, is that who you're going to have winning this?
In the world, Penn State Cougars
or Nittany Lions? Oh, what was I thinking? Nittany Lions. Sorry,
I was about to say, don't expect us like that.
Well, 4.5 point spread for Ohio State at home, 45.5 over under. Actually, I might hammer the over on that in this game. Actually, I don't know. The way both these teams have played really good defense this year, but I think, and this is kind of how I think about the Alabama-Tennessee game too. I think this game is going to come down to which quarterback can outduel the other. I think it's a little bit – it's going to be a better battle, obviously, in the Ohio State-Penn State game. I think the quarterback play will be a little bit more clean in that game, even though Penn State has a great secondary, and we've seen Ohio State's defense step up on the road this year against a really good Notre Dame team. But I think it really comes down to which quarterback can be more efficient. And right now, I'm not saying I'm leaning either one because I think Drew Aller's probably the better quarterback, but McCord's got the better receivers. So it's really a pick your poison. Which one would you rather go with? And Jake, I think I know who you might pick, but I kind of want to hear you say it.
Yeah. I always got to ride with my dogs, but I'm a Penn State fan too. They're my number 2 team. Also, Oregon State. Love me some Oregon State and some Washington Huskies. Big Pac-12 guy over here. This game is interesting. I agree with you where it's what quarterback can make the plays, what quarterback can go win. But I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm looking at it as what defense can get the stop. Because like you said, it's going to be a defensive game. I do think the over is going to hit, but I think it'll maybe 50, 52, somewhere along those lines. And so it's going to be a defensive game. Which team can get the stop in the fourth quarter? And I think that determines the winner. And so from your perspective, it's the opposite, where which QB can make the throws. I'm just looking at it as which defense can stop that said QB. I think that defense is going to be Penn State. As you can see, of course, I think Penn State's going to win. I think they're going to cover. This line is dropped. It was 5.5. It's now 4.5. So people have been hammering Penn State on the cover, to cover. So, I just think this Penn State offense has not shown their ability, what we know they can do. And they did last week, but they were playing UMass, won 63-0. Who cares about that? Go in and do it against Ohio State on the road. Drew Aller, great quarterback, still hasn't thrown an interception. He just hasn't been a wow guy for me, for anyone really. He's still a top 3 QB in the Big Ten. Definitely has the potential to be number 1. I would still have him behind J.J. McCarthy right now, but still, he's played well. He just needs to play a lot. He needs to be – this is going to sound counterintuitive, but he needs to be less careful with the football in this game, in my opinion. He's going to have to make throws. He's going to have to. And he can't just settle down for, 4-yard checkdowns. I don't think that's going to beat this Ohio State defense. So I think he's been game planning for that. They're going to need a big game out of their number 1 receiver, Lambert Smith. He's been really the only guy for Drew Aller. And their run game has got to improve. And for Ohio State, I think all you got to do is feed Marvin Harrison. I think they're going to try to do that. I think that's going to be their MO from the gate out of kickoff. So I think it's going to be a defensive battle. Going to be interested to see this one. riding with the Nittany Lions, though.
Well, I'll tell you what, both of these running back cores who we thought could have been the best, two of the best in the college this year, have really disappointed. Penn State and Ohio State, neither one have really been able to find anything on the ground this year. And against two really good defenses, I don't see that happening this week either. So that's why I think it's so quarterback centric. And like you were saying, Penn State doesn't have nearly as many guys on the outside that Ohio State does. We know that's kind of been the Ohio State MO in the last, 4 or 5 years since Ryan Day's been there. So because of that, I'm actually going to lean towards Ohio State to win and to cover in their home stadium. I think that also is going to help them out tremendously. I think they are the better team. I think Penn State has a better secondary, probably the better quarterback. I'd probably go Drew Aller, but in this situation, I think Marvin Harrison and Mika Ibuka and all those guys are just too much in the end, and they're going to be like that for a lot of teams. And pretty two similarly matched teams. They look kind of the same on paper too. Drew Aller, for me, this is his game. If he shows up and he wins this game, I think the outlook on him and just the quarterback position at Penn State is just completely changed. Because people have seen Sean Clifford play that position for the past 6 years, and it has not been pretty at times. I never thought he was a great quarterback, but Drew Aller 2 cycles ago was the number 1 quarterback in his class. We're talking about one of the most talented guys in the country. Just got to be able to put it all together. And I hope he's able to do something this week. I'm truly pulling for the guy, and I'm pulling for the Nittany Lions because I'd like to see them have some success under James Franklin. I really like Coach Franklin and his philosophy over there at Penn State. And it's a tough place to win, especially when you don't have the same facilities that Ohio State and Michigan does, but you have your fan base has the same expectation. So, but for everything that I've heard, and turnover battle again, last season, JT Tuimoloau took over this game for Ohio State, and Penn State turned the ball over 4 times in their own house this year. How are they going to be able to avoid turnovers this year, and will they be able to? I think Ohio State wins the turnover matchup. I think Ohio State has a better defense. I think Ohio State has a better overall team, and they're playing at home. So for me, I'm going to have to go Ohio State to win, Ohio State to cover in this game.
See, my thing is, I respect your opinion. I can see where you're coming from. I disagree. I think Penn State has better defense. I think Ohio State has a better secondary. But this Penn State front seven is nasty. I'm pretty sure they're second in the nation in sacks. I saw it today. I don't think Ohio State's front seven is that good. You mentioned JT not even going to try to pronounce.
Wow.
Absolutely took over this game. Pretty sure he had 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. Yeah, I was about to say pick 6. Yeah. Absolutely took over this game. And as a Georgia fan, I was terrified of him going into the Peach Bowl. Dude was a non-factor. I did not see him once. I didn't see him make a play. I didn't hear his name over the speaker. I don't know what he did. And so far through this season, same exact thing. Haven't heard his name, haven't seen him. So maybe he reemerges this game and comes out alive like he did last year. I just don't see it happening. I don't think they have a game changer like Penn State does in Chop Robinson and Abdul Carter. Both of those guys are studs. And I think they have the potential to take over this game. And I think they do. Because especially one thing to note, Ohio State lost 3 starting offensive linemen, 2 first-round tackles last year. Actually, DeWand, I think, went in the second round. But still, 2 potential first-round tackles. 3 offensive linemen are gone. So they're having to replace those guys with against experienced front 7 linemen for Penn State. That has me leaning Penn State, even if I was an objective fan looking into this.
And I don't mind. I really don't mind either side of this. I think either way, it's both. I can see both things happening. I just have to lean more. I'm leaning more on, obviously, I was a history major for undergrad. So I'm going to lean history tends to repeat itself. So I'm going to lean on what history has told me and what I see in terms of talent on the outside. But also another thing that I was thinking of when you were saying this, the Penn State offensive line is much better and much more experienced than the Ohio State O-line. And that kind of ties in, like you said, Ohio State lost 3 guys. Penn State's got 2 of the best tackles in the country protecting Drew Aller. But will it be enough time? Because these guys have to get open for Aller. And honestly, this year, they haven't been able to run the football behind these 2 really good tackles either. So it's a very puzzling and intriguing game. But I'm going to have to lean on history's side and go Ohio State. Now, with that being said, let's transition to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for another great close game. Truly, as an Alabama fan, starting to hate this new brand of football we're playing, where every game's close. I miss the old
Me
26
too.
17
As a
blowout.
Georgia fan, I feel the exact same way. I don't want to beat Auburn by 7. I don't want to beat Vandy by 17. I want it to be against like it was against Kentucky.
Yeah,
But
I
it
want to
is
destroy everybody.
it makes it more fun to watch, especially as a non-Georgia fan if I'm watching these games. But I agree with you.
Right. And Alabama's coming into this game, I think, as a 9.5 point favorite. And look, I was just thinking about this game today, Jake. And I just had to be completely honest with myself. I actually think Tennessee may be the better team on paper. They on paper, in terms of the way they played this season, not in terms of talent, but in the way that they have showed up to each game and played, in the way they played, their philosophy that they've played with has been a more consistent philosophy than Alabama. And I'll pretty much this is kind of what I'll go ahead and sum up Alabama's offense for you in one thing. Bad O-line play, okay? Average to below average running back play. Very average in the short to medium distance passing, but amazing deep passing, right? This Alabama offense is set up on shot taking, okay? So the only way we're scoring touchdowns right now is literally deep passes, balls thrown over 20 plus yards. Jalen Milroe is a 62% completion percentage quarterback on balls thrown in the air, at least 20 yards in the air. Second place in the country is like 45%. So Milroe's up 16% on 16 points, 16 percentage points up on anybody else in the country, which if you would have told me that before the year, I would have been astonished at, especially when you have a guy like Joe Milton, who on the other hand is not even close to that at all. And another game where I think it's going to come down to who's the better quarterback. And I think Alabama has the edge. Now, Tennessee has the better run game. They have the second best run game in the country, have a pretty good O-line, but Joe Milton has just not been able to find it this year in the passing game. Not having Brew McCoy in this game is going to hurt Tennessee for sure. Really only having two guys that they really trust throwing the ball out there, and Squirrel Wright and what's the other guy's name? Thomas?
Keaton.
Yeah, Ramel Keaton, that's it. Who's going to be matched up with Kool-Aid and Terrion and Malachi Moore, who will be back this week. So it's going to be really tough sledding in the passing game for them. And I saw that Milton was 190.5 passing yards or something around there. I actually think he'll go under that this week, but I still think this game's going to be very close because they're going to be able to run the ball a lot better than anyone Alabama's played all season. And I think Alabama will remedy the run a little bit on defense and be able to stop it every now and again. But the way that Josh Heupel runs his offense is so mysterious. You never know what he's going to do. A pop pass here, a run here, a draw here. Just a very intelligent offensive guy, and really has scared me for this week. I'm very nervous, very scared heading into this game. Obviously, I was scared and nervous heading into the Ole Miss game, the Texas game, really every game Alabama's played this year. Texas A&M. It's been a very nervous breakdown-ish type year for me watching Alabama football. But it is what it is. Alabama, they're not going to surprise you with anything. What you've seen this year is who they are. And I think Alabama is going to be able to make enough plays in this game, whether that's on the arm of Jalen Milroe, on his legs, maybe get some consistency in the run game for once. And I think we create enough stops on defense to win the game. So I'm going to say Alabama is going to win, but I do think Tennessee keeps it in a one-possession game. So I'm going to say Alabama wins, Tennessee covers. I don't think Alabama is going to lose 2 times in a row to Tennessee, especially at home. If this game was in Neyland Stadium, I would pick Tennessee to win the game. But since it's in Tuscaloosa, I'm going to pick Alabama to win. But I'm going to still pick Tennessee to cover.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you said that Tennessee is better on paper because at best, Tennessee is the 3rd best team in the East. At worst, they're the 5th best. So 3rd
I meant
worst.
by how they played this year, not talent-wise or stars or anything like that.
No, I know.
Consistently speaking, they have been more consistent than Alabama has been this year in the way they played.
See, that's just crazy because they've been the number 4 team in the East, so they have the potential to be 3rd, in my opinion, behind Missouri and Georgia, obviously, but they could be as low as 5 behind also Florida and Kentucky. Who knows? Who knows how those games are going to go? We'll talk about those when they come up. But this game, it's very interesting. You mentioned Jalen Milroe, like 62% completion. I saw those stats on 20 plus yards. It was like 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Crazy. Thing is.
Yep.
The part I know you saw but didn't mention, It was yards or throws under 20 yards. It was another, I think it was like 63% completion, which isn't awful, but it should be way higher than your 20 plus. Um, but the scary part about that, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. All four of his interceptions have come on
No,
below
two
yards.
touchdowns, not
Oh,
eight.
sorry. What? Two?
Two. He's only thrown 11 touchdowns this year,
Oh,
and
that's
nine of them have
wild.
been and
Oh,
nine
you're
of them
right.
have been yards
You're
20
right.
plus.
That's even scarier.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know if this game comes down to who's the better quarterback because when you look at it, it doesn't match up evenly. When you look at the run game, Bama hasn't been able to run the ball super effectively. Tennessee has. I'm curious to see how that goes. I don't think Bama's going to be able to run the ball super effectively this game. I don't know if Tennessee can. And then defensive wise, I mean, Tennessee's defense has been good, but I wouldn't even I would say it's mildly close to Bama's, but Bama's defense is a lot better than
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, has one of I don't want to call them an overrated defense because they've played well this season. They just don't think they've had a test. A&M is not a test at all. I mean, they gave up 33 points to Florida, and that was the best offense they've faced. So I don't think they're that amazing. I think they're really good at getting to the quarterback, but I don't see it from the rest of their defense. So I don't think Jalen Milroe has to play as well as Joe Milton this game. I don't think he has to play nearly as well. They're going to rely on Joe Milton to win the game, and if he is what you thought he was, he will win the game. I will have Tennessee, but he's not that quarterback. What coming into the season, he was average in the SEC for me. Right now, he's slightly below average. He was way worse than what you thought, a little bit worse than what I thought. And neither one of us expected Jalen Milroe to be the better quarterback thus far, and he has been. The thing is, even if they play average, if Joe Milton is slightly better than Jalen Milroe on Saturday, Tennessee still loses just because of how good that defense is for Alabama. So I do have Tennessee covering just like you do. 9 points is a lot, especially when this is going to be a defensive battle. So I think Alabama wins, but Tennessee covers. Alabama probably wins by, it's going to be one possession, 3 or 7. And it might look like Tennessee can win the game, but I think Alabama is going to control it for 3 quarters. And then Tennessee potentially have a chance to win it on a game-winning drive. But just Joe Milton is not that guy, so he can't get it done.
Well, I thought you brought up a really good point about getting after the quarterback. And what does Alabama struggle with this year? And that's protecting the quarterback. Against Power 5 opponents, Alabama is giving up on average 6 sacks a game, which is, I think, worse than college football of any team.
Yeah.
So not good at all against a pretty good pass rushing defense from Tennessee. I think there's ground to be made in the run game here. I really do think that Alabama can maybe open that up. And we saw last week when they had when Jamarian Miller and Justice Haynes went in and played running back, they both were able to make some pretty good runs. And I'm expecting to see a little bit more shifting at the running back position this week. See maybe them two a little bit more than we typically have. But if Jalen Milroe gets sacked less than 4 times in this game, Alabama's going to win. I think that they really are going to have
a wild statement.
If they really have, it is a wild statement, but that's kind of what Alabama's played like this year. Yeah. If the O-line can hold up for most of the game and only create a few negative plays, a couple of sacks, and Jalen Milroe's his jersey's pretty clean at the end of the game, if you just showed me a picture of what Jalen Milroe's jersey looked at the end of the game, I think you can tell really how this game is going to go. Because if it's really dirty, that either means he got put on the ground a lot or he ran a ton. And I don't think he's going to run a ton because the way their edge rushers are, they're going to really try and keep him in the pocket, collapse the pocket, let him stay in. But, if he's pretty clean coming out of this game, and I'm probably going to lean Alabama to have won this game. So I'm not crazy confident in us winning the game, but I do think if I had to pick, I would pick Alabama to win. And I'm leaning probably 65-70% Alabama to win the game. So better than last year, especially since we were going into Neyland, but still a lot left up in the air.
You mentioned it. I mean, last year Tennessee was able to get it done. And Tennessee, I think last year was the first time I've ever seen it from a Bama team where they were down the whole game. Bama was. They brought it back, and you could see the turning point. believe it was a fumble by Hendon Hooker at like their 5-yard line. So
He
Bama
took
scored
it
a
in for a
touchdown.
touchdown. Yeah.
Oh, was it for a
Dallas
touchdown?
Hunter took it in for a
Yeah,
touchdown.
they
Yeah.
took it in for the win or for the lead. And I was like, oh, Tennessee had it and they sold it. And then first time I think I've ever seen it, Tennessee brought it back and then ended up winning the game. So can Tennessee do that again? Because I think Tennessee's going to have a lead. It's been what A&M was. It's been what Ole Miss was. Where this Bama team, they're not great in the first half. They get you in the second half. Is Tennessee able to hold on to their first half lead, which I expect them to have, and you might as well. Can they do that? Last year they proved they could, but that was in front of a raucous crowd. It was crazy there. So can they do that when it's the exact opposite for them and everybody's cheering at them instead of for them? That's what I'm interested to see because, like I just said, I think they're going to have a lead at half. That's just you mentioned it. This is Bama's style of team this year. I think they're going to be able to get it done in the second half. But can Tennessee hold on? That's my question for them.
I actually disagree with the second half. I think Alabama's will be winning at halftime by maybe 7 to 14 points. I really do. So last week we saw Alabama go into halftime with a 21-point lead and score 3 points in the second half. Consistency is the key for both of these teams in this game, and we'll finish it off on this point. Whichever team can sustain drives for a longer period of time and keep the other team's defense on the field, keep them gassed, that's going to give that team a huge advantage. So I think, and Alabama has not shown much consistency in being able to stay and sustain drives this year. And I'm not saying we're going to be able to against Tennessee to a great degree. I do think we will be better this week after the Arkansas scare. I think that is going to kind of wake the team up. Nick Saban's talked a lot about that this week in his press conferences. He talked about it on McAfee today. So I do think we'll be leading at the half, but it won't be by a huge margin. I think we will come out and try and throw the ball early and often. Actually, I really do think we'll try to establish the deep ball maybe early and maybe even a little bit of the run game towards the end of the second quarter. But Tennessee, the way they played this year too, them running the ball, they try to wear you down as the game goes on with their run game. And I think that they're going to really lean on their run game early, and because they know they're not going to be down a ton of points, so they're going to afford and be able to do that. And eventually it'll start catching up with Alabama. And I think Alabama's defense will start finding trouble in the fourth quarter, kind of like they did against Texas. I kind of see it playing out like that. But I do think Alabama will be able to hang on and win the game. If I had to give a score prediction, I'm going to say I'm going to say 27 to 23 Alabama. I'm going to say 27-23 is my final score. Alabama wins. But enough about those games. Obviously, the two best games of the day, it's not even close. To me, neither one of those are the most intriguing game of the day. And I'll kind of get your feel on how you feel about this. The most intriguing game of the day to me is going to be on the ACC network at 7 o'clock that night, and that is Clemson at Miami.
Oh, wow. That is
very
not
interested.
I thought you were going for.
I am very interested to see how this game goes. You thought I was going Duke, Florida State. I'm going Clemson, Miami because
before you said ACC, I thought you were going somewhere else, but we won't talk about that one yet.
Well, ACC, Duke, Miami, very interested to see how Miami responds. Again, crazy loss 2 weeks ago to Georgia Tech. Last week, played a pretty solid game against North Carolina. North Carolina ended up winning in the end. North Carolina, obviously the better team. But Clemson, a team that we will both mention later when we talk about revisiting our conference champions, sitting at 4-2 on the year. Kate Klubnik really hasn't had that bad of the year. Just feels so bad for the guy. He's got nobody to help him out. Will Shipley, I think, is a pretty mid college football running back. I don't think he's as good as everyone gives him credit for. I do think he's pretty solid, but I mean, again, when you don't have any receivers to throw the ball to and you're kind of one-dimensional on offense, you're not going to get as much production as you need. And then I'm actually very high on Tyler Van Dyke. I know he throws a lot of interceptions, but he's a pretty good quarterback, one of the better ones in the ACC. And Miami has a better running game than people give him credit for, and a better defense than people give him credit for. Currently, Clemson is I think they're 2.5-point favorites right now on the road. 3-point favorites. It went up a half point. They're 3-point favorites on the road against Miami. Give me the Hurricanes to win the game outright and cover the spread. I think they're a better team than Clemson, first off, and second off, they're at home. I know home field advantage isn't much of anything at Miami, but For whatever it's worth, I'm going to have the Canes winning this game and improving to 5-7.
If there's one thing that you can count, if there's two things you can count on, it's the fact that A&M and Miami are going to be overrated every single year. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Miami is not a very good team. You know, we saw them lose to Georgia Tech in a crazy fashion last week. I know it was a decently close game, 10 points, but that game was Miami could have never won against North Carolina. They're playing a not very great Clemson team. They're a good team, don't get me wrong. Probably fourth in the ACC, but I don't think they're great. No one really does. But I have Clemson covering. I have them winning fairly easily. I say fairly. I think it's going to be a one possession game. I think Clemson wins by 7. But you mentioned on the road. I mean, I get they're playing in Miami, but it's not like they're really playing on the road. That stadium is so sad. Miami, for as many people who overrate them and just want to talk about them, they have 0 fans. No one ever shows up for them. And you mentioned it, Tyler Van Dyke, good quarterback. I don't think he's that great. Like you said, throws a lot of interceptions. I don't think he's faced a defense except for A&M. He sliced up A&M. But Clemson has a really good defense. I get they're not
good defense.
Yeah. I don't know about them. I know they've played well. They have played well. They just don't have first round caliber guys. I think they have one linebacker, but Clemson, everywhere you look on this team, they have them. And they haven't played with chemistry this year. So can we see them come to their full potential this week? Maybe. I can let you know I won't be watching this game. I will be watching a different game at 8 p.m. But I am interested to see the final score. I'll go back, watch the highlights. I expect Will Shipley to have a good day. I think he's really good. And especially when you throw the fact that they are one-dimensional, they don't really have receivers. They crowd the box. All the defenses they face, they crowd the box. And to see what he can do against those crowded boxes, pretty good. So I think he's going to have a pretty big day. And I just want to see Bo Collins, or they have number 10. I don't know his name. One slot wide receiver they have. I want to see them get open and catch the ball. Something they haven't been able to do this year. I think Kate Klubnik is in for a pretty big day. Give me the Tigers. I don't think they're that great, but I just don't like Miami.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of talked about the Miami fan base there. I think a fan base that you could really compare them to is a game that we're going to go to now, and that's the USC fan base.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of talk, not much showing up.
So
and I know you got something to say about that, so I'll let you start off this preview. Utah USC on Saturday night.
Yeah, so this is the game I thought you were talking about, saying you're the most intrigued. This is the game I'm going to be watching at 8 p.m. because I'm super interested in it. We're watching a potentially number 1 Pac-12 defense. I know it's up there with Oregon State, UCLA has a decent one. But, I mean, they're really good, Utah's defense, against the worst defense in the Pac-12, the worst defense in Power 5 potentially, because USC is so bad at that. Against potentially the worst offense in the Pac-12 and the best offense in the Pac-12. So this game is so interesting. It's good on bad and bad on good. So I don't know exactly how this game is going to go. And you mentioned their fans. It's so sad. USC is a national brand. They're also a team that's overrated every year. They're perfectly rated as they are now as at the number 18 team. It's where I have them. I think I had them at 21. So they're perfectly rated right now, but every year, I swear they get the A&M and Miami treatment. I don't know what it is, but their fans just don't show up. So Utah, I know you're not playing at home, but this is not really a road game for you, especially considering how close you are to Utah or to Los Angeles. They might have some fans that show up there. So I expect it to not be loud. Utah, starting Nate Johnson again, Cam Rising still not there again. Not a great offense. But I expect this Utah defense to pose some troubles for USC. We saw Arizona play that game 2 weeks ago, and, they just don't have the players to do it. Took them to triple overtime. And then we saw Notre Dame destroy them last week. That game was, the score was closer than the game was, and it was like 28 points or something like that. USC never stood a chance. I think Utah pregame for this really well, and they're gonna have some plays and some defenses, and I expect them to get it done. It's a seven line or -7 for USC. I think Utah covers, and I think Utah wins as
Wow.
well. Not super confident in the winning part, but I am confident that they cover because this USC offense, I know I said it's best in the Pac-12, but they have not been great these past 2 weeks. And I don't know if that was a fluke because they were really good before then. And even the second half of the Colorado game, they weren't that great. So I don't know if they can get it done. I expect Utah to come out and potentially play their offense, play how they haven't so far. This is their biggest game of the year. And if they want to have a shot at winning the Pac-12, they have to win this game.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go back and just like the Ohio State Penn State game, I'm going to have to lean on history here, but not in the way that you think I'm going to lean on history. Utah has been the Achilles heel for USC in the last few years, beating them 2 times last year, winning the Pac-12 championship. Now 2 years in a row, they're the Pac-12 champion, defending champion. So, but who did they have at quarterback? Both times they were the defending. Cam Rising. Who do they not have playing quarterback on Saturday?
Cam
Rising. And how bad did they beat USC in those matchups? Very little. Very little. And their defense, I think, is just as good, maybe even better than then. But here's the difference for me. I think USC, as crazy as this sounds, USC's defense this year is better than it was last year. As crazy as it sounds,
it
a
is
little bit better. And their offense is either just the same, probably around just the same, maybe even a little bit better.
I think it's worse.
I don't know. I think it's tough to really gauge because of the Notre Dame game. It was such a outlier statistically for them. But I'm actually going to go USC to win the game. I'm going to go USC to cover the game. Very, very I would not place a single dollar on that ever. But I'm just not a Nate Johnson fan. I've talked about it a lot. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. He's not a very good passer. He's a good runner, and he's been banged up a little bit recently, and that's obviously going to hurt him in the run game. And I know Utah's got a good running team, and USC's defense is terrible. But Caleb Williams, he's going to have vengeance on his mind, especially after a rough outing last week. I think this is going to be a get-right game for the USC offense, and especially Caleb Williams. And I really think he's going to go off in this game, like 5 or 6 touchdowns. So I'm going to go USC to win, USC to cover, but there's not a lot of confidence behind that pick at all.
Yeah. Let's head to also potentially the most interesting game of the week, which I don't know if you're expecting this one. Let's head down to Auburn, Alabama, and talk about the Auburn Tigers. They're facing the Ole Miss Rebels. This is what's the line right now? It's sitting at 6.5 Ole Miss way. I don't know. I don't know how this game is going to go. This game was in the SIP at Ole Miss. I would say hammer that. But this game is in Jordan-Hare. And one, I don't think Jackson Dart is that great. I don't have a lot of confidence in him. Their running game has been suspect. I know they've gotten it up over the past couple of weeks, especially that LSU game helped. But still, you can't ignore the 4 weeks before that. And this Auburn offense is not good. But something in Jordan-Hare, I don't know what it is. Again, we've talked about it numerous times, both as an Alabama fan and as a Georgia fan. We know it. Something is there. Something is going to happen this weekend. I feel it. Maybe it's not going to be a kick six, maybe not the prayer in Jordan-Hare, but something will happen this weekend that is going to allow Auburn to both win and to cover.
Wow.
Again, I don't know what it is. I am not thinking about this from a football perspective. I'm thinking about this from an atmosphere perspective because Jordan-Hare magic is crazy, and I don't know what's going to happen. But this Auburn team, I would have them ranked in the top. Let's go 20 in the top 20 at home, but on the road they're like bottom. They're bottom 20. It's so large, and it is solely due to that crowd. So I think they pose a big threat to this Ole Miss offense, who I already don't have a ton of confidence in, and I think they're going to struggle big time.
Auburn fans have made some kind of deal with the devil in that stadium. Like we've talked about it, there's some kind of voodoo magic there. It doesn't matter who you are, how bad Auburn is. On any given Saturday, Auburn is going to take you down to the wire in Jordan-Hare. I mean, rarely do they ever get blown out there. But with that being said, this Auburn team is so bad, and we've talked about it all year. Peyton Thorne is awful. He's also their leading rusher, which is just wild to think of. And probably almost half of his, or a third, or no, excuse me, sorry, a quarter of his yards rushing came on one carry in the Georgia game where he carried the ball for like 60 yards or like 65 yards. He only has 225 yards rushing. This Auburn offense is abysmal. They're awful. And their defense is, maybe a little bit above average at best. And this Ole Miss offense is amazing. They've been really good all year. Really, the only game they played bad in was the Alabama game, but they were playing against a national championship caliber defense. Quinshawn Judkins is finally finding his way on the ground. Took him a long time. The O-line's finally coming around a little bit, but Ole Miss's defense is really bad. I mean, Pete Golding, since he moved, Alabama fans have said it for the last like 4 or 5 years. He is bad. And he moved over to Ole Miss. They paid more money for him to be their defensive coordinator just to get worse on defense. So I think Auburn will actually score some points. I do think Peyton Thorne will throw for over 100 yards for the first time against a Power 5 team this year.
Whoa.
Or last week, did he throw for over? He threw like 102 last week, didn't he?
Stop the hate. Yeah, he threw for 102 against LSU.
Okay, he'll throw for more than 102 this week against Ole Miss. I think he'll throw for like 130. But I do think Ole Miss will win this game. I think it's going to be like 31 to – I'm going to go 31-17 Ole Miss. Ole Miss wins. Ole Miss covers in Auburn. I'll never pull for Auburn. They are literally the worst team on planet Earth. I wish nothing but the worst for them every week. It's always a great week when Alabama wins and Auburn loses. It's my favorite week of the year. And it happens a lot recently, so I've been loving it.
I do want it to be known. I'm not pulling for Auburn. I just think they're going to win because, one, I hate Auburn, obviously, as a Georgia fan. Two, I want Ole Miss to be as highly ranked as they can be coming into Athens. So they have a chance to be 10-1. I don't think they'll do that, but they have a chance to be 10-1. Or no, sorry, 9-1 heading into Athens week 11.
And it only looks good for Alabama too if Ole Miss continues to do well, since Alabama beat them at home by 11 points or whatever. So yeah, I'm definitely pulling for Ole Miss for sure against Auburn. I will never pull for Auburn. Doesn't matter what the situation is. So I really do hope Auburn walks in there and stomps all over, or Ole Miss walks over in Auburn and stomps all over them. I don't think they will stomp all over them, but I do think they win. I do think they have a good enough offense to cover the spread. So give me Ole Miss and plus the points, or minus the points, excuse me. But let's go over to the other side of the SEC, Jake, where you have another pretty intriguing matchup in Columbia, Missouri. Not the battle of the two Columbias, really. South Carolina versus Missouri, a South Carolina team that I know is better than a 2-4 record that they have this year, facing against, like both of us think, the second best team in Missouri in the East.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri's a really good team. I don't think they've gotten the love they should. I think they're better than 20th in the nation. They have a really good offense and a defense that has a lot more potential than what they've shown. And also, like you said, the South Carolina team, they should not be 2-4. One, they've had a really hard schedule facing UNC, Georgia. Who's the other team? Not Florida.
They played Florida.
Who's the other team they lost to? Oh, they lost to Tennessee. Yeah. And so they've lost to 3 really good teams. This game is intriguing. It's 7.5 Missouri. If it was 7, I would definitely say Missouri, or if it was 6.5, I would definitely say Missouri's going to cover, because I do think Missouri wins. I think they win. Brady Cook he's really good. And they have one of the best duos in the SEC in Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. Luther Burden has 800 yards, which is just insane. And also they have a really good running back in Cody Schrader, who has 7 touchdowns on the year. I think Spencer Rattler is going to pose problems for that Missouri defense. But again, that O-line, we say it every week, they're horrible. They're awful. Good thing is Mario Anderson, their running back, is coming around, has played pretty well the past 2 or 3 games ever since they played Tennessee. And so this line is kind of tough. I'm going to say Missouri covers. I think they win by 10 because they're at home. If they were playing at Williams-Brice, I would have them winning by 3 or 7. I do think this Missouri team is really good, though. I think Brady Cook can do a lot with his legs, can do a lot with his arm, and is going to show it on Saturday.
Yeah, I also agree with you. I think. Go ahead. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna also add on to the fact the South Carolina team. We mentioned it, 2-4, probably the best 2-4 team. I think they're going to lose. You probably think they're going to lose. They're going to be the best 2-5 team after this week, which is just insane.
Yeah, yeah. They could beat a lot of a lot. They could probably beat the 6-1 or 7-1 Iowa Hawkeyes. I'm not even kidding.
Not
Uh,
probably. They beat them by 14.
yeah. So I'm also going to go Missouri. And again, no confidence in this bet. I think Missouri's going to win. I have confidence in that, but I'm no confidence in picking the over or the line here. But I'm going to go Missouri to win, Missouri to cover, just because they're at home. I'm trusting Brady Cook and his ability. I know he's also been a little gimpy lately. He been a little banged up, but I like Cody Schrader, and I really like the matchup he's going to have in this game. I think he might actually have a pretty good game. He's had a good year so far. And obviously Luther Burden is just a dog. Feed him the ball as much as possible. And I think Brady Cook's going to make a point to do that. And I think Missouri improves to 7-1, wins, and probably good to cover in this game. So we'll hop back over to the SEC West now for I think the current best 2-5 team in college football. The Arkansas Razorbacks are hosting the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And I'll go ahead and give everyone a preview to a little bit of the best bet section that I'm going to have. This is my lock of the week. Arkansas will cover the 7 points against Mississippi State, a really bad Mississippi State team that we don't know if Will Rogers is going to be able to go in this game. He got hurt, got pretty nicked up in their last game before the bye. Now, they did have the bye, so don't really know what exactly is going on with him. But after that game was over, he was not in pads, and I think he even had crutches. So who knows what's going on with Will Rogers, but, Mike Wright could get the start for Mississippi State, his first one of the season. And when he's gone in and played this year, he's been pretty good for them. But KJ Jefferson, I mean, I got to see him up close and personal last week. He is a dog. And I've been saying this for the last 3 years. He's a top 5 quarterback in the SEC who has absolutely no help. No help on the perimeter with any of his receivers, really. They can't really get much separation. They were able to catch some balls and some contested catches. But I mean, he's kind of a one-man wrecking crew out there by himself. Not a great O-line either, and not a great defense. These are the 2 worst teams in the SEC West, but they match up well for each other. And I think Arkansas will win this game by like 14. I think this will be a 14-point win, maybe even a 17-point win for the Razorbacks at home. Their first home game in 4 games. They've been on the road 4 straight weeks, and I think they'll prove a point by showing they're the best 2-5 team in the country in front of their home fans and make themselves 3-5. Mississippi State 3-3 going into this matchup. But like I said, best bet of the week, and I'm simply doing this because I think KJ Jefferson is that guy. And without Will Rogers, Mississippi State's a different team. So Arkansas will win. Arkansas will cover the 7.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Mississippi State, not a great team. Potentially the worst team in the SEC. Do they have Vandy on the schedule? Please tell me they do. I don't think they do.
That would be a great game. Auburn plays I saw this. Auburn plays at Vanderbilt in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Uh-oh.
That might be the game of the year.
If Vandy was going on the road, then it wouldn't be close, but Auburn's going there. No, they play South Carolina. Is that the only East team they play? What? I thought you always play 2. Oh, they play Kentucky. I didn't see that. Yeah, sadly, they don't play Vandy because this might be the worst team in the SEC. They're just that bad, especially without Will Rogers. I have every single Power 5 team except for like Virginia beating them. So that'll be interesting. Like I said, I'll keep it kind of short. Arkansas, they've looked pretty good. I wouldn't say good, but they've looked pretty good. Like you said, best 2-5 team. They've played Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. All of them close. They've all ended in L's though, so that sucks for them. But this line, 6.5 Arkansas. I'm gonna go Arkansas covers, wins by 10 or so.
Yeah, and then finally, the last game we'll preview tonight, the Duke Blue Devils at the Florida State Seminoles. Riley Leonard probably still not going to play in this game, but they didn't need him last week. And they're 14.5-point dogs at Florida State Seminoles this week. Florida State coming off a bye, or no, they didn't have a bye. They played last week. But, I mean, it's a good spot for Duke to maybe make some noise, especially without Riley Leonard. They're still obviously in the ACC championship hunt, sitting at 5-1 on the year. A big win over Notre Dame a few weeks ago. I know we talked about that a lot, but I think 14.5 is a lot, Jake. I don't know about you, but That's a lot of points to be laying against a really good Duke team that has a pretty good defense. And I like Florida State a lot. I think they're a really good offense. But, I still think Duke is good enough to keep it within 14 and a half, even on the road. I'm going to take Florida State to win the game, but I'm going to take Duke to cover. I think Florida State wins by around 10 or so, maybe even 7. But I do think Duke is good enough team to keep this pretty close. And definitely a game to watch, later at night at the 6:30 kick, 7:30 kick on the East Coast. So really good game to watch, but Florida State will still probably win the game, stay undefeated, but Duke will give them a battle, I think. And so for that, I'll go Florida State to win, Duke to cover.
Yeah. Mike Elko has said Riley Leonard has a chance of playing this game, which makes me think that he's not playing. If he was in this game, I'd have to think about who's going to win it. But I think FSU wins it decently easy. This is the area I don't think Riley Leonard makes a difference. I think Duke covers this game. Like you said, 14 and a half points is a lot. If it was 13 and a half, I would have to think on it because that's just 2 touchdowns. But you're going to have to score 2 touchdowns and a field goal more than Duke. I just don't see that happening. FSU, they're a good team. Jordan Travis, he's played banged up all year. I'm pretty sure he got, maybe not all year, but halfway through the season, I'm pretty sure he got banged up bad against Boston College. Since then, he's just been playing with a hurt left arm. So I'm going to have FSU winning, Duke covering in this game.
All right. Well, good preview section. Got about 8 really good games going in this next week. Some pretty interesting games. Obviously, you got the 11 o'clock kickoff for Ohio State and Penn State, the 3:30, 2:30, wherever you are for Alabama, Tennessee. And then some pretty interesting nightcap games with Utah, USC, Duke, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. Some good games in the SEC that we previewed. So pretty good weekend of college football. Really looking forward to being able to watch. And obviously your Georgia Bulldogs are off this week, so you will get the ultimate viewing experience, being able to watch all the games this week.
That's what I wanted to talk about because we haven't talked about the Brock Bowers news.
All right, there you go. Yeah. Big news right here. Yeah.
Don't say big news. Very, very sad news. So no one on our last show, no one was really sure about the extent of his injury. Turns out he's going to need tightrope surgery and he's going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So from the Georgia community, we're just kind of assuming that's the rest of the regular season and he'll be back for the SEC championship game. So honestly, from here on out, it's just a win is a win. I don't care what we look like. If we beat Missouri by 1, if we beat Tennessee in overtime, I don't care. Let's just try to finish the season undefeated and get into the SEC championship game. I do in the long run. I texted you this a little bit ago. I think after Brock Bowers got hurt, but I said I think this makes us better in the long run. And my opinion on that has stayed the same. The reason why has changed a little bit. The reason I mentioned to you was that one, Oscar Delp gets a lot more involved. He goes from the tight end 2. We do a lot of 12 personnel, so he's on the field a lot. But now he's going to be the one tight end. We're going to have him out there all the time. And Lawson Lucky is going to get a lot of run. Last week, he looked like a freshman, didn't play that great once Brock Bowers went down, but how would you expect him to, even if we were playing Vandy? Because he himself had tightrope surgery earlier this season, and he's been dressing for 3 games. So obviously, he wouldn't look his best. He's going to get some run too, but the reason it's changed a little bit is because we're going to be going to a lot more 11 personnel. Lawson Lucky, I don't anticipate him being in the base personnel. We will still run 12 personnel. We won't just take that out. But I anticipate MRJ, Marcus Rosemy, Lad McConkey, Ra Thomas, Dominic Lovett, and Dylan Bell all to see their playing time. Not really playing time because they all play wide receiver, but their snaps and their receptions all go up. I think you can't replace what Brock Bowers does, but from one person, because no one ever, not a single person in college football could do that, because he is the best player in college football, in my opinion. If Caleb Williams was a tight end, maybe you could, but Since he's not, you can't. So you won't be able to replace his blocking, his yard after the catch ability, his catch ability. You can't put that to one person. So what you can do is you can put his blocking to Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, one of the best blockers. Also Ladd, give his yards after catch to Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell. And the 50-50 balls, give that to Ra Thomas because he's great at that. So I just think, like I said, I think we're going to be better in the long run because all these people are going to see a lot more receptions, and their ability to make plays is going to have to go up. And so by the time Brock Bowers gets back, they're going to have that ability already through the ceiling. And so by the time week 13 or our 13th game comes around, when we're playing potentially Alabama or LSU in the SEC championship game, I think that's when we're at our best. But until then, I just want to win. I don't care how it looks. So it is scary. Prayers up for Brock Bowers. The thing is, he is the person that can come back from this in 3 weeks. I'm not saying he will. I don't think he will. But if anybody can, Brock Bowers can, because he's not human.
Well, first off, I will say I and Alabama fans have a lot of experience with the tightrope surgery. Obviously, Tua had two of them. So both
back in 28 days.
Yeah, and both of his tightrope surgeries. So he was back and fine. But I think Georgia fans would love to have, best case scenario, have Brock back for the Tennessee game. Obviously, it's going to be an unreal crowd there, and Tennessee's still a good team, not as good as they were last year, but still a good team. And I do agree with your statement about it's going to end up making them better. But I think it will make them better when Brock gets back.
Yeah.
Right now, it's
100%.
going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue, and it's going to make Oscar-Delp a better player. But it's not going to make Oscar-Delp a better player when Brock isn't there to help him out. It's going to make him a lot better when Brock gets back, and he's going to be able to take some attention off Oscar, and then that'll find ways to free Oscar up, and he'll be able to catch the ball and do his thing from there on out. But Georgia's going to have a couple of games. I mean, Missouri, Ole Miss, Brock is probably not going to play in either one of those games. And those are two really good opponents. And I get both of them are in Athens, but those are two pretty big opponents, big scary games for Georgia, and games that they were going to rely on Brock in. And now they don't have him. And you can't really replace that production. I mean, you take Brock off the field against Auburn, they lose that game. So it'll definitely be a different Georgia team moving forward. And I'm kind of excited to see how Georgia's offensive coordinator kind of attacks, like you were saying, go to more 11 personnel. But I'm kind of excited to see how he kind of designs these new plays and I'm not saying their offense is going to look completely different, but it's for sure. I mean, who do you go to on third down in a 3rd and 8 situation now? I mean,
well, the thing is, that's actually really interesting that you bring that up, because on third downs,
it's a lot. I know Ladd's been doing it a lot.
Ra Thomas has 8 targets. Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint has 6 targets. Brock had 6 targets. Ladd has played 3 games and sparingly. 3 games sparingly, and he already has 6 targets. So of course, Ladd, he's going to be the guy you go to. Yeah. Like I said, Ra has 8, MRJ has 6, Dominic Lovett has 5, Dylan Bell has 4.
With Brock not on the field, they don't have to put as much attention on Delp. I'm not saying they're not going to double him, or you can maybe afford to put another guy on Ladd. You can maybe afford to put another guy on Ra or Dominic, whichever one you choose and whatever look you get. So yeah, and because if Brock's on the field, you have to double him. Doesn't matter what the look is, you have to. But now that he's not on the field, it's going to be interesting to also see how defensive coordinators attack Georgia on third.
So there is a huge balance to this, where a lot of the time, one of the reasons Ladd gets open is because he just has to beat his corner, because there's never a safety there, because the linebacker and the safety always go to Brock. I think that's going to open up Oscar-Delp a lot, because Oscar's just going to have the tight end and linebacker. And Oscar is a really good player. He was a top 100 player. I believe the number 2 tight end out of his class. Like, people don't understand that. They think since we left, Stockbridge is screwed.
He start at any other SEC.
He is so good. And next year he's going to be probably the best tight end, second best tight end in the SEC behind Mason Taylor. He is really good. And so I think this
Amari Niblack.
I forgot about him too. But this is going to be really big for him, because he is a tremendous blocker. Has gotten really good at it. So it's going to be interesting to see, can Ladd get open when the safety isn't crashing like he was. And also the big thing about that, this bye week is coming at a perfect time because Amarius Mims, who had his tightrope surgery, might be back by Florida. Ladd's probably going to be 100% by the time Florida comes. Kendall Milton, who got hurt against Vandy again, he's probably going to be 100%. Xavier Truss, who went down and we had to go start a true freshman at right tackle, he's probably going to be back. So, I mean, we're going to be healthy except for Brock Bowers by the time this comes around. So I think things are looking up, but it's our bye week, so enough about us. Let's get into some of these teams from last week because we got a good amount. And I hate to do this to you, I really do, but you gave them to me, so we're gonna talk about them. Number one team, and I think they're the only team that could be number one, the Washington State Cougars. I don't think anyone expected this. Coming into the week, everyone thought it was, if you would have told me it was 44-6 at the end of the game, I would have been like, okay, cool. Washington State blew them out. Nope, the other way around. Arizona blew them out.
On the road, too.
It was at Pullman.
On the road.
It was at Pullman, which is insane. So I don't want to say that I saw this coming because I didn't, but I've told you. We've both talked about it where Washington State was a one-dimensional team. Someone finally discovered, I don't want to say discovered that because people knew that, but somebody finally exposed them for that. And so after this game, I think this might just open up the floodgates for Washington State. It might be scary the way this season ends because, they were looking really good. They beat Oregon State, who was really good in my opinion, potentially a top 10 team, and then goes and embarrasses themselves against Arizona. And Arizona might be a good team. Who knows? We talked about it. Who knows? But you cannot lose to 44-6 to this Arizona team. So they're my number one team.
Well, I think my number one team, obviously, I could go a lot of the ways with the four teams that I chose, but I'm actually going to go Wisconsin. I'm going to go Wisconsin as my number one because they had their only opportunity at a Big Ten championship appearance taken away from them this past week by an Iowa team that is not a very good team at all, especially on offense. They have really good defense. Don't get me wrong. They do every year, but their offense is awful. And they got outscored more than twice more outscored than by Iowa. 15-6 was the final score. And, Tanner Mordecai is probably going to be out for a little bit. We don't really know his status. Probably not going to play this upcoming weekend. I think they play Indiana, which is, a tough game on the road for Wisconsin, especially without their starting QB and starting a freshman for the first time. But they're now, completely out of the Big Ten championship picture pretty much. They have to rely on Iowa to lose a couple of games, and Iowa's schedule is terrible. Iowa may not even lose a couple of games. They could be an 11-1 team that is – like you were saying, 2-4, South Carolina could beat them. That's really just kind of the schedule they play and the way the rest of their season is going to go. So Wisconsin really shot themselves in the foot last week. And I get Mordecai didn't play, but even when he was in the game, they weren't great either. So for me, it's got to be Wisconsin. They've got to be my number one team on the list because their season might be over now.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a curveball in because I was gonna say that at the end of the session. But another low key team is Iowa. The reason I say low key is because they're going to finish the season 11-1 probably, but probably get their OC fired if they hold up the contract because they are not going to average 25 points. Right now, they're averaging 20, which means they have to average 30 for the rest of the season, and they will not do that. And their OC, if they uphold their contract, will get fired from an 11-1 team. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. It must suck to be that dad. But my real team, and I don't want to say I prophesized this, but I did say last week after they won, they're going to be on the list, even though they were 6-0. USC. I tried to tell people. Arizona exposed them in the first half. It finished 17-14, but it was 17-0 through the first 20 minutes of the game. And so they exposed USC's offense, USC's defense. We all knew that was trash. But that showed it might not be smooth sailing for their offense. And the Notre Dame showed them. So I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go. I'll talk about it more later, but I had them in the Pac-12 championship. I just don't see a way of that happening now. So they have a tough road ahead of them, starting this weekend against Utah, and that's why I don't think they can get it done against them. So especially when they go in and try to play Washington and Oregon, the best two teams in the Pac-12, I don't know. The season's not going to end too well for them.
Well, my second team is the Texas A&M Aggies, but I think I'm going to change the title of this. I'm going to go Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino as the because they put up 13 points at Tennessee. They haven't looked good against Tennessee. They had an opportunity to beat Alabama and they weren't able to capitalize on that. And they also lost to Miami earlier this year. And it's just not worked out the way I think a lot of A&M fans thought it would, specifically under Jimbo. But then bringing in Bobby Petrino this year. Obviously, Wegman is out and not playing, but I still don't think it's much of a difference with Wegman playing quarterback or Max Johnson playing quarterback. And actually, I've loved the fight I've seen from Max Johnson. I think this guy has sitting there and taken some hits. He's made some really good throws. He's also made some really bad throws, but you can't really fault him for what he's doing. I mean, he's getting absolutely destroyed like every play. I feel so bad for the guy. And they need him because they don't have anyone behind him. So they really are asking a lot out of him the rest of the year. And they've just not been able to scheme up anything for him. Like with we were talking with Cade Klubnik earlier. Just a tough scenario for a quarterback to be in. And I mean, you really start to question what's going to happen with Jimbo Fisher this offseason. I'm not saying he's going to get fired, but there will definitely be some conversations in College Station going around that is not going to be very healthy for that program.
See, I think that is important to know. And my team is Miami. I said it earlier, they're always overrated, but they're two different programs for me because A&M always overrated. The reason why they fail is because of their coach. I don't think Jimbo Fisher is a good coach. He got lucky at Florida State, I guess, with one of the best rosters ever. And he's shown that where he has the best roster in football, at least he did last year. And he did absolutely nothing with it. And he's doing absolutely nothing with it. He'll be lucky if he makes it to a bowl game this year. So I think that's on the program. If they can fire him, please, at the end of this year. Honestly, I shouldn't be saying please because that'll be scary. Because if they can get a competent head coach who can win games for them, they're going to be really good because it's a ticking time bomb. It was kind of like Georgia's program. Georgia was one of the best jobs in America when it became open. And it was just a matter of who, and that was Kirby. And so this is the exact same way. Ever since Manziel came through that program, they've just needed to find a coach, and they haven't been able to do that. Whereas Miami, now getting into them, this is just a program thing for me. I know they're one of the historic programs, but that was back when we were born. That 2000.
We were born, really.
But hey, when I was born, that 2001, before you were born, youngin, but that 2001 Miami team was really good when I was born. So really, that was the last time. So at this point, they've cycled through their head coaches, and they've had good seasons here and there. I remember, I think it was 2017, they beat LSU, which nobody saw coming, and they had a really good year after that. I believe they went 10-2 or 11-1, something along those lines. But it's not been able to be consistent, and they haven't found a coach that can do that because it's just a program thing at this point. And maybe it can get turned around in the next 10 years, but it's not like Texas A&M where if you find a coach tomorrow, they can lead you to win. Because this Miami team, I just don't think they're held up to do that. I don't think they have a great enough roster. I don't think they have a great enough atmosphere. Don't think they have the fans, donors, nothing. So that's the main reason they're on my list, because I don't see anything happening for them in the future.
I couldn't agree more. I actually do like Cristobal. I think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
And I just think, like you said, the program is just it's not his fault. It's just I think it's a combination of all the factors of the school. I mean, who would want to play a football game? Or hold up, let me just tell you, who would want to have below average facilities and then have to travel 45 minutes every day down the road to practice and play? Yeah. Not me. And I think they need to figure that out. And I think that would honestly help out their program more than anything. They got to get the donors first for it. So
I will say, let's not, take all the blame off of him, because he single-handedly lost that game against Georgia Tech for him. He has all the decision making at that point. I don't care if the OC calls the plays. He's the one that says to kneel it, and he didn't do that. So let's not take all the blame off of him, but I completely agree. Who I would not go to Miami if I was a recruit. That wouldn't be in my top 15 schools.
And so my third team, I didn't really want to put this. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really shouldn't put this team on there because I don't think they have gone against the expectations. I think people were overrating them because of some of their performances they've had this year. But that's the Kentucky Wildcats. I wouldn't even necessarily say it's I think they know what they are on offense at this point. Devin Leary not turned out what they wanted him to be. We thought he'd be a lot better at quarterback when he came in, and he hasn't been. But they found a stud in Ray Davis at running back, and we know what they want to do. They want to pound and ground the football. And Ray Davis is probably the best running back in the SEC. Statistically speaking, I think Judkins is better than him, but statistically speaking, this year Ray Davis has had the best season. I will continue to believe that he's going to be able to sustain that, have some consistency in that area. But if Kentucky really wants to get better, they got to throw the football better, and I don't see it happening. I would say they're probably the fourth best team in the East, maybe even fifth behind Florida. The East is actually pretty stacked this year. Now that we've seen like halfway through the season, kind of seeing stuff come into fruition, you've got some really quality teams. I mean, Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina is a quality team. Kentucky's a quality team. Who am I missing here? Really, Vandy's the only non-quality team in the East this year. I mean, the East is looking really, really good this year. And I mean, you've been the one to say it the past couple of years. They've been really quality. They have been.
Because look, I know that's what the West was 4 or 5 years ago. I know the West was a lot better than the East. Obviously, I know. But I don't know why people think it's still like that. The past 2 years, the East has been better. And last year, it wasn't even close. 2021, it was close. Last year, it wasn't close. And a large part of that is due to, Georgia being back and also Tennessee being, I don't want to call them back, but being a top 25 team again. Whereas this year,
anything was better than what they were is something.
Yeah, I know. And so coming into this year, I don't know why people thought the West was way better than the East. I didn't understand it because Georgia, I mean, everyone knew Georgia was number one. And honestly, Tennessee's been worse than I expected them to be. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I don't understand why people hate on the East compared to the West because I think it is better. It's not by much. It's very marginal now. But we're not playing in 2016, 2017 where, you can have potentially 4 West teams better than the best East team. That's not how it is anymore. Now it's where, the number, what would you, never mind. I'm not going to say that, but it's just one of those things there. You mentioned it. Vandy is the only team that is not competent. And I know you can say all 7 teams in the West are competent.
No, but I don't say that.
Yeah.
I think there are 5 quality teams in the West, and I think there's 6 in the East.
I was talking to my roommate about it earlier. If you match them up 1-1 all the way up, I think the East wins it 4-3. So
I'd have to think about that. I can't really think about that right now, but yeah. I mean, I don't.
Well, we gotta talk about that because that's one of my. It's not a hot take, but that's one of the takes that I'm hottest about because I don't like how people hate on the East, and it's also one of those things. We'll get into it.
How about this? How about we go ahead and set that up as the segment for next week's preview show? That'll be our next segment. We'll talk about SEC West versus SEC East.
Let's do it.
Let's get back to here. Who's your last team?
Well, we're not going to take it away from the SEC East. We're staying in the East at South Carolina. What's the date, Sutton? What is it right now?
It's October. It's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It is October 20th. It is October. It is not Cocktober. We all thought it was. We thought South Carolina was going to win. You convinced me. I forgot it was Cocktober. I still thought it was September. You told me it was. So we both picked South Carolina. Everyone was picking South Carolina. Thought we were going to be right. Saw the scoreboard. It was South Carolina was up by 10 with the ball with 9 minutes left. Somehow ended up losing. Graham Mertz is just that guy, I guess. Not really. So I know South Carolina is the best 2-4 team, gonna be the best 2-5 team after this week. But dude, because it doesn't get easier for them. It just doesn't. So I don't know what the rest of the season has entailed for him. I think Shane Beamer is a good coach. He's a little odd, very odd. And I don't love the way he goes about some things. Sometimes he sold his players, threw them right under the bus this past weekend. Didn't like how he did that, but still. Uh, Good coach. It's just he plays against the hardest schedule in football. It's either him or Auburn, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
it's or one of those teams in the Big Ten East who has to face Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. But I don't know. South Carolina, I think this is the last week they need to be on the list because if not, they're just going to be on it every week.
Yeah. And then finally, I put UCLA on the list because I think they know kind of what they are now. And Dante Moore, he's going to end up being a really good quarterback. I truly do believe that he has all the tools, but he's been a turnover prone machine this year. And that's cost him a couple games. And a lot of people had them up pretty high in the Pac-12 championship race, and they really aren't. They're not as good as Oregon State. They're not as good as Oregon. They're not as good as Washington. They're not as good as USC. They're probably not as good as Utah either. So I just don't think that it's realistic for them to be in the top of the Pac-12 race where some people have them. And it's mainly just because of the youth of their team. And Dante Moore, he's going to end up being a good player, but right now he's still going through the lumps of being a freshman. So that kind of landed them on the list this week. But a lot of these teams are second defenders on the list, and we probably won't see them again on it. Teams like South Carolina, Wisconsin, A&M, Washington State, USC. This is their first time on it.
No, it's not. I had them last week. We'll see USC on it again. I promise.
Okay. We'll probably see USC. Probably won't see Miami again because this is the second time they've been on it. Definitely won't see Kentucky again, and probably won't see UCLA. So next week when we have the session, probably completely new teams on there. So be tuned for that. But this is the one I've been the most excited for. I want to revisit our conference championship picks from the preseason. Our first show. We're on show 19 now. Show number 1 is when we made these predictions back in the summer before classes even kicked off for either of our schools. And we're going to take a look at the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, the Pac-12. We'll say what we first had, and then now, halfway through the season, who we think is going to end up playing for the title and who wins for each respective conference. And we may even we may even throw out playoff picks at the end if you want to do that too. If that's up to you. But
let's save that for next episode. I'll start that.
So how about we start in the SEC, where I think has changed. It's definitely changed the smallest for me. But I know you had a different SEC championship pick to start last season. So go ahead, tell us kind of where that was and what you're thinking now.
So I had UGA, LSU, obviously Georgia winning it. East, it doesn't change. I still think we finish 12-0. I still think we win it. For the West, it just looks a little different. LSU still has a chance to win it, which is kind of crazy. I would say the only team really out of it is Ole Miss. And it's crazy because they only have one loss, and that came to Bama. But it's just because Bama would have to lose 2 games, and I don't see that happening in the West. So LSU, all they have to do is beat Bama, and they can make it. But I don't think that's going to happen because Bama, I don't want to say they got fortunate because last year they had to play everyone away. This year they get everyone at home. So luckily they got Ole Miss at home. They got Tennessee at home. They got LSU at home. And so I think that game is going to pose a lot of problems for Bama. That's really all it comes down to, LSU Bama. I think it's going to pose a lot of problems for them because they have a really good defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to contain this LSU offense. It's just I think we're going to be able to see that Bama offense open up against them because LSU's defense sucks. So I'm going to have Bama winning that game, and then it's UGA Bama rematch in the championship, and I am going to have Bama or Georgia winning. If Brock Bowers was not playing, I think Bama will win, but I'm pretty sure he will be back for that game, so I have them winning.
Yeah, so my actual prediction to start the year off for the SEC championship was Alabama versus Georgia, just like Jake said, but I had the Tide winning, and I'm not changing that pick. This is exactly where I thought Alabama would be kind of preseason. Maybe not the way we're playing, but as far as the standings go, I thought Alabama would lose to Texas. They did, and this is exactly where I had the Tide saying. So they've not really exceeded expectations. They certainly haven't gone below expectations either. I've been kind of pleased with the way Milrose played. The biggest part is the disappointment in the O-line. but I think Alabama is going to be able to. I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for, and I think this Georgia team's a little bit more shaky than people realize, especially if Bowers doesn't play, and shaky in comparison to how they played in the past. So I'm going to stick with my original prediction. I still have Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC championship. Now let's move over to the Big 12. Here, preseason, I had the Texas Longhorns winning the Big 12, but I had them playing the University of Central Florida Knights in the Big 12 championship game. I was very high on UCF. Obviously, John Rice Plumlee hasn't played like the last 4 games, so I'm not saying they would have won all 4 games he was playing. Probably not, but not the exact season or the way it's gone for UCF that everyone thought it would. And Oklahoma's a lot better than everyone thought it would. They would be. I'm going to keep Texas in the Big 12 championship, and I'm going to keep them winning, but I'm going to have them rematching against Oklahoma, and I think Texas gets the better of Oklahoma here in a rematch. And I mean, what a slap to the face it would be to the Big 12 to have the 2 teams that are leaving the conference represent the conference in their championship game. I think it's going to happen, but I think Texas wins round 2 over OU. So give me the Longhorns to win the Big 12 over the Oklahoma Sooners.
So your SEC didn't change. My Big 12 didn't change. Let's go. I had Texas, Oklahoma with Texas winning. I predict that's what's going to happen. At the start of the season, I thought it was going to be Texas 13-0, Oklahoma with 2 losses, maybe 3, but both really coming to Texas. It's flipped now. Texas has to win that game. I think they'll be able to, but it's not going to be easy. No one really thought Oklahoma was going to be this good. People thought Texas was going to be this good. That's going to be a great game, a great rematch, and the hardest thing to do is beat a team twice. So I still have Texas winning that matchup at the end of the day. But one of the areas where I think both of ours has changed, I can't really remember what you had, but ACC, I had FSU Clemson with FSU winning. And so I still think that's how it's going to end with FSU winning. But obviously, Clemson can't make it. I think they're going to play North Carolina, and I know that's going to be the typical pick. It's going to be FSU, North Carolina, with FSU winning. That's probably what you're going to have. But I at this point, I can't really see it another way because the ACC, I know they have a couple of good teams, but they don't have to face anyone. That's not how it is. So
this is definitely my most laughable one. So I predicted the Clemson Tigers to win the ACC, but you know who I had them playing? Pitt.
Let's go.
Who's 2-4 this year to start the year.
Let's go.
I'm also
Great
in
pick.
Carolina versus Florida State, but I'm going to take the Tar Heels to win the conference this year. I'm going to take the Tar Heels to beat Florida State. I think they're a little bit better, more of a complete team, a little bit better team. And at the end of the day, I trust Drake May a little bit more than I trust Jordan Travis. So that's why I'm going to pick the Tar Heels to win the ACC. Now, let's move to the Pac-12. I want to do the Big Ten last. And I have the exact same 2 teams in the championship, but I had the way the regular season played out and the championship played out differently. So I'm basically swapping it. I had Oregon beating Washington in the regular season and then had Washington beating Oregon in the Pac-12 championship to start the year. I'm swapping that. So now Oregon lost to Washington in the regular season. I think Oregon will get the better of Washington in the postseason, kind of like Texas OU, the exact same scenario. So I think Oregon now will win the Pac-12 and Washington will be the runner-up. Pretty much, like I said, same thing as the Big 12.
Yeah, I love me some Washington Huskies. I have a very similar prediction, but like you, I think it's different how it's going to go about. I had Washington, USC. I know from what I've said about USC, it's kind of surprising that I picked them to go. I don't have it like that anymore. I think it's going to be a rematch of Washington, Oregon. But the thing is, we both said we don't think Pac-12 was going to get anybody in. We both knew it was the most competitive one. We didn't think it was the best. I think we can both agree it's the best conference this year. We thought they were going to shoot themselves in the foot and have a 2-loss team win. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Washington goes 13-0. I'm going to have them beating Oregon in the championship and making the playoff.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. And here's the Big Ten. And it's a big story in college football today. We won't touch on it a lot, but Michigan is getting looked at an NCAA investigation for possible recruiting. I think are recruiting violations or
no, it's on-field scouting.
On-field scouting. And this is the second time they've gotten in trouble with the NCAA, Jim Harbaugh in specific earlier this year. So not a good look for Michigan at all. Assuming nothing happens to them and mid-season, get like post like bowl game bans or anything like that this year. My pick was Michigan versus Wisconsin earlier in the year. I had Wisconsin win the West, Michigan win the East. Still have Michigan winning the West, or I also had Michigan winning the championship, obviously. I still have Michigan winning the championship, winning the East. But obviously, now that Wisconsin, Iowa have played, Iowa beat Wisconsin. I've got Iowa winning the Big Ten West, but Michigan is going to demolish whoever they play, or whichever team comes out of the East is going to demolish whoever they play in the Big Ten championship from the West. So got Michigan playing Iowa now.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier. So I had Michigan, my laughable one. I had Michigan, Nebraska. I know Nebraska. I just thought they were going to be better, and I still don't think they're. I think next year is going to be their year. I said that coming in. I just thought they were going to be a dark horse in a horrible, horrible Big Ten West. It is so funny. I'm not going to hit on it too much because we already did, but it is so funny how Iowa might finish the year 11-1. And what happens if they do the unthinkable and upset the Big Ten East winner, which would be crazy.
Don't even put this into motion. Don't even
Great.
put that out there.
A 12-1 Iowa team, but that's not going to happen. Iowa is going to finish the regular season with one loss, I think, and that one loss coming to the one team they played. They have played a atrocious schedule, only playing Penn State and getting blown out 31-0. So I think they're going to go 11-1 and they're going to play Michigan. Big Ten, I think it still plays out how I predicted it. I think Penn State goes 11-1 with one loss to Michigan. I think Ohio State loses both to Michigan and Penn State. So I have Michigan blowing Iowa out in the end.
Yeah, well, let's get into some best bets here. And a little bit different for me this week. A couple weeks ago, I had 6 games and no players. That's how confident I was in my games. I am not confident in the lines Vegas is putting out at all this week.
You had 0 games last week.
I only have 2 games and 4 player bets this week. So the Vegas lines are looking really good this week. And I already I touched on my lock of the week earlier, and that's Arkansas to cover the 7 against Mississippi State. If I had money to bet, I would hammer that. So that's probably the best advice I could give out. I really think Arkansas is really going to turn the page there.
I don't think you're going to like my lock of the week. I know you agree with it. I just don't think you're going to like it.
First off, what do you think about Arkansas, Mississippi State?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Arkansas is going to cover. Mississippi State sucks. I know you agree with it. I don't think you're going to like it, that it's a lock for me. I think Tennessee beats – sorry, not beats. I think Tennessee covers against Alabama, and I don't think there's any doubt about that in my mind. I have Tennessee covering the 9 points, and I know you agree, but
I wouldn't think it's a lock. I definitely wouldn't put it as a lock because I could definitely see a scenario where Alabama covers the spread here.
Yeah, it's
gonna think Tennessee will cover.
It's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be low scoring. I just see this coming down to one possession. Like I said, I don't think Tennessee threatens to win the game through the first 3 quarters. I think it comes down to a drive where they have to score and they can't because Joe Milton sucks. But I just think they're able to cover this week.
Well, for my final game, I'm going to go Wisconsin is playing at Illinois. Wisconsin is a 4.5-point favorite in that game. Wisconsin is probably going to be playing without Tanner Mordecai in this game. And Illinois is off a big win. I know I've been a big Luke Altmaier hater this year. He probably will still throw a pick in this game. But I'm going to go Illinois to win outright and cover the 4.5 at home against Wisconsin. Wisconsin will be starting a true freshman on the road. So I like Illinois in this matchup. I think Brett Bielema is still a really good head coach, former Arkansas head coach. So I guess we're just giving a lot of love to the Arkansas Razorbacks today. But go Illinois to win, Illinois to cover the 4.5 laid towards Wisconsin.
Call me crazy. I think Wisconsin can get it done with their redshirt freshman. I don't think that quarterback really poses any problems for them. The quarterback position, because Tanner Mordecai, I don't know why he was hyped up. Again, Wisconsin, another team, don't know why they're ever placed in the top 25, just for no good reason. They never proved anything. Tanner Mordecai hasn't proved anything. I guess he did at SMU, but it was SMU. So I don't think it poses really anything for him. The reason I think Wisconsin really covers is because Maryland was such a big win for Illinois. And I was watching it. And I just think they're still trying to run on that high, and I think it's going to come to an end. I think they'll settle back down to who they are this week. And like you said, Luke Altmaier, he's going to throw a pick lock. I think the Wisconsin defense is just going to be able to win it for him.
Okay.
And,
You got another one for us?
yeah. One I'm not the most confident in, but I saw it and I had to take it. UNC is minus 23.5 against Virginia. I know that's a lot of points, but Virginia might be the worst team in Power Five football. They are atrocious. They're awful. They should not be in the ACC this year. And UNC might be the best ACC team, especially the best offense. And so I think points are not going to be at a premium. I think they're going to be at a discount this game for UNC, and I think they win by 33 plus.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think North Carolina will cover the spread as well. Now, let's move into my player bets. I got 4. And I'm going to start with a guy I gave a helmet sticker to last week, and that's Leshawn Williams, the running back at Iowa, who's going to have to pick up the slack for the Iowa offense at this point. 61.5 yards rushing. I'm going to go hit the over. Iowa plays against Minnesota this week. I think he has to get 61.5, and he will probably throughout the rest of the year. So I'm going to go Leshawn Williams to cover the 61.5 over rushing yards against Minnesota.
Yeah, I like it. I have them over. Deacon Hill, whatever. His line is like 97.5. Something.
100.5 passing yards.
Oh, it went up. It was 90. I guess it was 99 when I last saw it. That's crazy. It's going to hit the under. They're going to have to rely on him. So I'm going over as well. My last game, and I mentioned it earlier, so I won't really talk about it. I have Utah +7. I know you said you want to put it as a best bet because I know you said USC -7. I just think this game is going to be close. I think Utah comes out with a win, but I'm just betting them to cover.
Yeah, I'm going to go different. I'm going to go USC to win, USC to cover. So my second player prop bet, I'm going to go stay in the Big Ten. I'm going to go Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State. He has his receiving yard totals 19.5, only 19.5 receiving yards for the Penn State tight end. I'm going to go over. I think Drew Aller's really going to look for him in short yardage situations on third down. And I think that he's going to get around 40, 50 yards receiving in this game, maybe even 60. I see Theo Johnson heavily involved in this game for Penn State. A guy that Drew Aller can trust throwing the ball to a bigger frame against a pretty good Ohio State defense. So I'm going to go. I think that's a pretty easy one. Theo Johnson over 19.5 receiving yards.
I just don't really know about this one. He's athletic.
Tight end for your Penn State Nittany Lions. 19.
Yeah, no, he's athletic. The thing is, they have like 3 different tight ends they could throw to. And he is the most athletic of the ones, but also he hasn't played a defense like this one. So that is a very low line, and especially with the secondary that Ohio State has, I am gonna have him over as well. I don't know. That could go either way for me. But yeah, that was my last game, and so I'll keep it in that game. But go to the other side. I know this is not in favor of my Nittany Lions, but Marvin Harrison, I mentioned they're going to need him. His line is 85.5. I know that's a lot of yards, but I think they're going to pepper him with the ball. I have that over. And I know they got a lot of wide receivers. They got to feed a lot of mouths, but I think he's the one that can do it. I think he goes over 85.5 yards.
I'm going to go under for Marvin Harrison. I think they're going to maybe use him more as a decoy in this game, especially with a really good Penn State secondary. Maybe try some other guys. So I'm going to go under just for the sake of having something different than you. My third player prop bet is going to be Jalen Milroe, Alabama quarterback, passing yards, 227.5. I'm going to hit the over against Tennessee. We talked about Alabama's a big play offense, especially in the passing game. And Milroe is probably going to hit at least 1 or 2 of those, I think, in this game. And I think he is going to go well over 227. I have him more like 260, 270 yards passing in this game. So I think that's another pretty easy one that I could throw out there. So Jalen Milroe, more than 227.5 yards passing.
I actually have him under. I don't think he hits that. I think this Tennessee defense is going to know how to limit him, and it's going to be, like we've said, it's going to be a defensive battle. I know they almost lead the SEC in explosives in the pass game. He's been really great in that, but I just think this Tennessee defense is going to be able to not stop it, but halt it. And they're going to force him to beat them over the middle and on shorter throws, because that's something he hasn't been able to do. And so, especially since this Bama receiver core isn't what it used to be, I think Tennessee can kind of contain them. So I have the under in that.
Okay.
And then in the Big 12 with the Oklahoma UCF game, I know you said it. John Reese Plumlee hasn't played the last 4 games, but he's back this game, and they're going to rely on him to try to win against Oklahoma. So his line is 248 and a half for rushing and passing. I don't want to bet either rushing or passing, but let's combine the two because he's going to be doing a lot of both. So I'm going over.
I will too. I'll hit the over on that. Why don't we finish our show with a laugh, Jake, for my last player bet?
Oh, no.
Deacon Hill, the Iowa quarterback.
Oh, why'd you throw this one?
I am putting this one in here. Passing yards at 100.5. Under. He will throw for probably 60 yards passing in this game. I think Iowa's going to have more rushing yards easily than they will passing yards in this game. I do not trust Deacon Hill with my life. If the ball was my life, please give it to somebody else, anybody else, literally. Deacon Hill is garbage. So passing yards, 100.5 under against Minnesota this week. You mentioned it earlier, and I was like, dang, he's going to steal my bet. But no, he's definitely going to hit the under. He's not throwing for over 100 yards.
Yeah, it wasn't one of my best bets, but I will agree with you. If Deacon Hill has to hit a slant pass or a screen pass to save my life, I'll meet you at the gates of heaven because he is not doing that, dude. He is so bad.
Well said.
So bad. And it's so sad how an 11-1 team will be quarterbacked by Deacon Hill, whose line is 100 against a bad Minnesota team. That's blasphemous.
I think Kirk Ferentz has been calling the NCAA saying, are you sure we can't get a transfer quarterback in here midseason? We can't trade for somebody.
But look, this
awful.
This is going to get the treatment of Peyton Thorne for me. If he gets 101 yards, 102 yards, I'm going to let you hear it and congratulate him and say he is him, just like Peyton Thorne.
I will say I'm sorry. And I may even, I don't know, figure out the fight song or something for Iowa just to apologize. I don't know, because I do not see this happening at all. I can't even fathom what a 100-yard passing game for an Iowa Hawkeye. So, but with that, do you have another, or are you done?
Yep. I got one more. Let's keep it in the last game that I was talking about, Oklahoma UCF. Go to the opposite side of the football, not opposite side of the football, opposite team. We're going with Dylan Gabriel. Exact same category. We're going rushing and passing yards, 341.5. Again, don't know what he's going to be doing more of. And I know that's a lot of yards, but Dylan Gabriel has it in him. Is a top 5 for Heisman right now, has played really, really well. Had like 450 yards against Texas, I believe. So he has it in him, and especially against a not great UCF team. If they can at all hold on to this game, they're gonna want Dylan Gabriel to throw it around. So I have him.
Well, going up against his former team too. If you don't remember, he did play at UCF. He's probably going to have something to prove, a little chip on his shoulder. Playing in front of his fans in Oklahoma. So I'm going to go over too. I think this is a game he's going to want to play in as much as possible, and he's going to try and put as many good numbers as he can up against his former team. So
believe me, I know he used to go to UCF. We really wanted him as a recruit, but obviously he wasn't going to sit behind the guys we have, and ended up going to UCF. Good for him. So
yeah. Well, look, another great show, episode 19, episode 20 coming next week. Crazy that we've almost already on 20 shows. College football regular season is almost over.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
I mean, best time of the year is about halfway done, guys, and we've loved every minute of it here. Love having you guys check us out. Remember to like, subscribe, tell people about us. Remember, there's podcasts and there's the YouTube channel, so make sure y'all go and watch there. I guess by the time y'all are watching this will be Friday morning, Friday night. So with that, we'll see y'all next week. Hope y'all have a good weekend of college football, and Roll Tide.
We are. Let's go.
You're not gonna say the other one too?
No, we're Nittany Lion fans.
We are.
Weekend.
Okay.
We
All
are.
right. See you guys.